We continue now at the top of Daf Pezayin Amar Aleph from Meseches Yoma. This is Yoma Daf 87a. The Gemara here is continuing. When Rava would go out to judge, he would say as follows: Bitzvo nafshe l'ktala nafik. Out of his own will, he's going to be killed, meaning again, maybe he'll make a mistake in the judgment and he'll be chayav misa. Vitzavu beise lesu avid, he's not doing the will of his household, he's not gaining anything for them. V'reikon lebeise azil, he's going to come home empty-handed, again, not going to get paid for this. Ulavai shetei bia ki yitzian halavai, that he should enter the same way he went out, meaning he should come back with no sin. And the Gemara continues, when he used to see crowds behind him because they used to honor him, Amar, he would say the following pasuk: Im yala l'shamayim sio v'rosho la'av yagia. Even if a person reaches the heavens, his honor reaches the pinnacle. Kegalolo l'netzach yoved roav yomru ayo. At the end, he's going to be like golol, he's going to be like dung, and people will say, where is he? In other words, at the end of the day, the person's honor is not going to last. Rav Zutra ki'avim mechas v'lei b'shabsa derigla. Similarly, Rav Zutra, when they used to put him on his shoulders on the Shabbos of the regel, Rashi over here says, he was old. They used to carry him into the base medrash also. It was a way of honor also. So he used to say, not forever is this honor going to last. The crown doesn't go for every generation. And the Gemara now continues in Darshan's Psukim, it's not good to show respect to the wicked. What that means to say is, it's not good for the wicked when they're given respect in this world. The idea is it's bad for the wicked when they're given their reward in this world and not in the next world. It wasn't good for Achav. He was given a certain amount of respect in this world. Like it says, HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, since Achav was humble in front of me, therefore the evil won't come to his days. He wasn't punished in this world. That's actually bad for him. He'll be punished in the next world. And then the pasuk continues, Lahatos tzaddik v'mishpat. The pasuk says to give to the tzaddik in judgment, and that means the exact opposite, says the Gemara. Tov lahem l'tzaddikim she'ein nosen lem panim b'olam hazeh. It's good for the tzaddikim that you don't give them favor in this world. Again, they'll collect their they'll collect their reward in the next world. And the Gemara gives the example, Tov lo l'Moshe, it's good for Moshe Rabbeinu, shelo nasu lo panim b'olam hazeh. He wasn't given any favor in this world. Shenemar, like it says, Yan lo hemantem bi lahakdisheni, since you didn't believe in me to sanctify me, that's why I am punishing you now in this world and not in the next world. And the Gemara makes a diak, ha'ilu hamantam bi. But if Moshe Rabbeinu and Aaron had trusted in HaKadosh Baruch Hu, adayin lo higia zamanim li poter min ha'olam, then their time would not have come already to depart from the world. They would have been able to remain ba'olam hazeh. Ashreim letzadikim, the Gemara continues, fortunate are the tzadikim, lo dayan shein zochen el shemezaken livneihem v'livnei v'neihem at sof kol hadoros. Not only do they get merit, but they get merit for their children and their grandchildren until the end of all generations. Shekama bonim hayu lo li'Aaron, because Aaron had many children, sheru'uyin li sarif k'nadav ve'avihu, who also could have been burned like Nadav and Avihu. Shenemar, like it says, hano sarim, those who are left over. That implies that they also were ru'uyin li sarif, but they were left over. They didn't get that punishment. It was the merit of their father Aaron which saved them. And in contrast, woe is to the wicked, not only are they chayiv, they're even mechayiv their children and their grandchildren to the end of all generations. The Gemara gives the example, there were many children that Canaan had, that could have gotten smicha just like Tavi, the servant of Rebbe Gamliel. Tavi was a great scholar, and he was the servant of Rebbe Gamliel, a descendant of Canaan. Many of Canaan's children could have been like that. But it was the chiyuv of their father, the sins of their father, that caused them not to receive this. Gemara continues, anybody who helps the rabbim to do mitzvahs, they're not going to find any sin come through them. And anybody who causes the public to sin, we almost don't even allow that person to do teshuvah. And the Gemara explains, anybody who's mezakeh the rabbim, there's no sin that comes through him. My time, and what's the reason? That way he shouldn't be in Gehennim. We don't want that he would be in Gehennim while his Talmidim are in Gan Eden. He teaches his Talmidim in a way that they go to Gan Eden, so he should go to Gan Eden as well. Shenamar, like it says, Ki lo sazov nafshi l'sha'ol lo sitein chasidcha liros shachas. You're not going to allow your righteous one to go into destruction, to go into Gehenim. A person who is mezakeh the Ravim, he also will go into Gan Eden. And similarly, anyone who causes the public to sin, he won't be able to do teshuvah. For the same reason, it shouldn't be a situation where he ends up in Gan Eden and his students end up in Gehenim. Like it says, again, this is the person who causes others to sin, so he should not be able to avoid that punishment. And the translation of that pasuk is a person who's laden with the blood of other people, Oshik bedam nefesh ad bor yonis. He's going to end up in the pit. He's going to end up in Gehenim again, a reference to the fact that he caused others to sin, so he's going to end up ad bor yonis. And the Gemara continues with the two dots. Omer echta v'yashav. Let's say somebody says, I'm going to sin and do teshuvah. I'll sin and do teshuvah. So the Gemara says, Lama li l'meimar echta v'yashav trei zimni. Why does the Mishnah have to say, I'm going to sin and do teshuvah, I'm going to sin and do teshuvah, say it 2 times? What's the point of repeating that line? The Gemara answers, Kid Rav Huna Marav. It follows what Rav Huna said in the name of Rav. The Yomer Rav Huna Marav, because Rav Huna said in the name of Rav. Kevan shavar adam aver v'shana. But when a person does an aver and repeats it, hutra lo, it is mutter. Gemara asks the same question as before. Hutra lo salka daitach. What, you think it's totally mutter just because he repeated an avera? Ela nasis lo keheter. Rather, what it means is that it seems to him as though it is mutter. And the Gemara continues at the 2 dots, quoting the Mishnah, Echta v'yom HaKippur mechaber, ein Yom HaKippur mechaber. If a person says, I'm going to sin and Yom HaKippurim will be a kapara, Yom Kippur will not be a kapara in such a situation. If he's relying on Yom Kippur, it will not work. So the Gemara says, Leima masnisin delo karebi. Let us say our Mishnah does not follow Rebbe. We quoted Rebbe before. The Tanyas we learned in a brayso. Rebbe Yoma, Rebbe says, I'll call avera shebatorah bein asa teshuva, bein lo asa teshuva, Yom HaKippur mechaper. And when it comes to any avera, whether a person does teshuva or not, according to Rebbe, Yom HaKippurim does give a kapara. So here also, even if the person sins knowing or thinking that Yom Kippur will be mechaper, it should work. So the Gemara says, no, afilu tema Rebbe. You could even say our Mishnah is Rebbe, agav shiny. If you do the avera on the condition, thinking I'm going to do it because I know that Yom Kippur is mechaper, even Rebbe agrees Yom Kippur will not be mechaper. Rebbe only says it's mechaper in a situation where you did not do the avera thinking that you wanted Yom Kippur to be mechaper. Avera sheben adam l'makam v'chulu. So the Gemara again quoting the Mishnah, if you have averas between man and God, so then Yom HaKippurim could be mechaper. But if it's between man and man, so then you have to ask forgiveness from your friend. So the Gemara says, Rami le Rav Yosef bar Chavu le Rabbi Avo. Rav Yosef bar Chavu asked the following question to Rabbi Avo. Averis sheben adam l'chaveiro ein Yom HaKippur mechaper. We said that when you have averis between man and his friend, so Yom HaKippurim is not mechaper. But doesn't the pasuk say, Im yachta ish lo ishu fillo elokim? So we're going to see this in Rashi, but the implication of the pasuk is that God is forgiving when you have a sin from man to man. So the Gemara says, no, man Elohim dayana. The word Elohim here doesn't refer to God, it refers to the judge. You're actually going to the judge and the court. By appeasing your fellow man, by getting a ruling from the court, that's how you get forgiveness. So the Gemara says, if so, let's look at the end of that pasuk. If you sin to God, who's going to daven? So the Gemara says, here's how you read the pasuk. If a man will sin to another man and then appease the person, we'll see Rashi again how we're changing our understanding. But if you ask forgiveness from the person, then God will forgive. But if you sin to God, who's gonna give the forgiveness? You're only gonna get forgiveness if you do teshuvah and ma'asim tovim. Now Rashi over here explains. The Gemara initially, when it first quotes this pasuk, thinks that the word of fililo is like davening. So the Gemara thinks it means when you sin against another man, you daven and Hashem will forgive you. That's why the Gemara has a question. The Gemara then answers, Man Elohim dayan. The word Elohim here refers to the judge. The Gemara then answers that it's talking about a judgment, that you go to the judge, and that's how you get forgiveness between man and man. Then the Gemara asks, if that's the case, that it's a language of judgment, how do you understand the end of the pasuk? It says, who's going to daven? Are we supposed to understand that as judgment as well? That wouldn't make any sense in the context of the pasuk. Who's going to judge him? HaKadosh Baruch Hu has many ways of judging. So the Gemara finally answers, Hachi Ka'amar, Hachi Nami, Tefillo Dekra Lashon Piyasu. The Gemara ends up reversing and saying, you're right. The pasuk, when it says filul, it actually does mean to daven or to appease, and here's how you understand it. The way you read the pasuk is in the end as follows. If a man sins to another man, it doesn't mean davening. In this case, it means you appease your friend. And then if you appease your friend, so Hashem will forgive. What it means is, if the person doesn't do teshuvah, what's going on in this pasuk is, Eli the Kohen is telling his children, if you don't do teshuvah, nothing is going to happen. No one's going to be able to save you from your sin without doing teshuvah. That's why the pasuk says again, the pasuk is indicating you need to do teshuvah and ma'asim tovim. And the Gemara continues, Amar Rabbi Yitzchak says, if a person upsets his friend, even just with words, the person has to go to appease him. Shenemar, like the pasuk says, my son, if you became like a guarantor to your friend, you stretched out your palm, you struck your palm to the stranger, you did something with your mouth, verbally you did something wrong, do the following and be saved. When you come to the palm of your friend, so what the pasuk is saying, hisrapes v'rahav re'echa, means you have to go to him, appease him, urge him to forgive you. And the Gemara now darshans exactly what these last few words mean. If you owe him money, hater lo pisas yad. The word hisrapes is hater lo pisas yad. Give him the money, you got to pay him back. V'im lav, and if not, if it was just with words, harbe olav reim. You have to have a lot of friends go on your behalf to try to appease him. That's what it means. V'rahav re'echa. Get a lot of people on your behalf to go to the person in order that he should forgive you. And the Gemara continues, Amar Rav Chisda says, V'tzarch l'faisel b'shalosh shuros shel shalosh b'nei adam. You have to appease him with 3 rows of 3 people. That's how many people, so to speak, you have to use in order to achieve forgiveness. Shenemar, like it says, Yashur al anoshim v'yomar chatasi v'yashur havesi v'lo shavali. We're darshaning the word Yashur to mean like shuros shel shalosh b'nei adam. These rows of 3 people, get the people to act on your behalf in order to ask for forgiveness. And the Gemara continues, Amar Rav Yossi bar Chanina. Rav Yossi bar Chanina says, if a person asks forgiveness from his friend, he shouldn't ask more than 3 times. Like it says, so it says over there, the language 3 times asking forgiveness. So we learn out from there, that's the amount of times you should ask. And if the person who you offended died, maybe asara b'nei adam, you bring 10 people. Uma'amidan al kivri, you stand over the person's grave. V'yomer, he should say the following: Chatasi la'Hashem Elokei Yisrael v'leploni shechavalti bo. I have sinned to God, and I have also sinned to so and so that I inflicted some kind of a wound upon this person. I'm asking for forgiveness. And the Gemara continues, Rabbi Yirmiyah havalei milsel Rabbi Abba bahadei. Rabbi Yirmiyah, he had a situation with Rabbi Abba where he had insulted Rabbi Abba and he needed to get forgiveness. So Azal Eisiv Hadasha de Rabbi Abba, so he went and he sat by the doorway, by the entranceway, the threshold of Rabbi Abba's house. And then the maidservant of Rabbi Abba was throwing out some dirty water and it fell on his head. So Rabbi Yirmiyah said, Asuni ka'ashpa, this made me like a garbage heap. Kara nafshe, he called about himself, may ashpos yoram evyon, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu lifts up the poor from the garbage heap. So Shama Rabbi Abba v'nafik la'pei. Rabbi Abba heard what was going on. He came out. Amar lei said to him, Hashta tzrichna l'meipek adaytach. Now I'm the one that needs to ask forgiveness from you. Tichsiv, that like the pasuk says, Lech hisrapes v'rahav re'echa. Same pasuk we quoted before. Go humble yourself and urge forgiveness from your friend. So I now have to ask forgiveness from you for this insult that happened. Rabbi Zera kavilei milsa b'hadayinish. So Rabbi Zera, when he used to have an issue with an individual that he felt that person needed forgiveness from him, he would present himself before the person back and forth. He would make sure he was available in front of the person. That way the person would realize what's going on and understand that he has to ask forgiveness from Rabbi Zera. And the Gemara continues, Rav havilei milsa b'hadayatavcha. Rav had an issue with a certain butcher. He felt that the butcher had insulted him, so the butcher needed to ask forgiveness. So also lo asalakame, and the butcher never came in front of him, never asked forgiveness. But Mali Yoma de Kippure, so on Erev Yom Kippur, Amariyu, so Rav said to himself, Ezelano, if you say, I'll go and I'll appease him, and that way we can make up for this situation. So Pagabe Rav Huna, he met with Rav Huna. Rav Huna was the student of Rav. Amarle said to him, Lahecha Ka'azil, he said to him, Rav, where are you going? Lahecha Ka'azil Mar, where's the master going? Amarle said to him, Lefuse Leplanya, I'm going to appease so and so. Amar, so Rav Huna said, Ezel Abba lemiktal nafsha. Abba refers to Rav. Abba is going to kill someone. In other words, Rav Huna predicted this will not end well for the butcher. So Azal v'kami lave, so he went together with him. Havi Yosef v'kafali reisha, and he was sitting right in front of the butcher. Kami lave was sitting in front of him, and the butcher Havi Yosef v'kafali reisha. The butcher was going and he was splitting the head of an animal. He was cutting up some meat. So Dali eine v'chazi, he lifted his eyes and he saw that Rav was sitting there. Amar lei, so the butcher said to him, Abba adzia lesli milsa badach. Said, Abba, get out of here. I have nothing to say to you. Bahadid the kafali reisha. Now, as he was splitting the head of the animal, ishtamid garma, a bone flew out. Umachya b'koi v'katli. It hit him and it killed him. So the prediction that Rav Huna made actually came true. The Gemara continues. Rav have a pasuk siddur kamei de Rebbe. Rav was saying over a pasuk in front of Rebbe. Ayil then came in, and we'll continue with this discussion in the next video on Daf Pei Zayin Amud Beis.